I'm Caden, here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're listening to Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
So, on today's episode of Eating W's, we have some news recap from the prior 2 weeks and also our prediction on the starting quarterbacks for some of the quarterback controversy heavy teams. So, first off, I just kind of wanted to touch on the fact that we didn't have an episode last week, of course. There just was not much news. Cal and I's schedule were a little messy, and we just decided that it wasn't really worth it because there was just nothing to talk about. And to be honest, even with 2 weeks of news built up here, there still really hasn't been much news to talk about.
Not a whole lot,
But we have a pretty fun topic to talk about today where we will be predicting who will be the starting quarterback for the majority of the seasons for a couple of NFL teams, both on the AFC and NFC side. So we will just jump right into it with the news. So starting off with a couple of signings, the Minnesota Vikings signed Albert Wilson to a one-year deal. Albert Wilson was a receiver for the Dolphins and I think a few other teams most recently, but I remember him from the Dolphins at least. Just kind of a smaller speedster guy.
Drafted by the Chiefs, actually.
Drafted by the Chiefs? Didn't know that. I don't think he's going to be much more than like a camp body depth guy, but who knows? Maybe he'll kind of step up. He made some pretty decent
He
plays
was kind of the
Dolphins.
odd man out down there in Miami after their free agent acquisitions. So.
Certainly. And then another veteran receiver pickup, the Buffalo Bills signed Tavon Austin to a one-year deal. Again, I think that's a pretty similar situation, but he killed it as a return man when he was with the St. Louis Rams way back when. So we'll see if he becomes Buffalo's main return man, maybe. So jumping on to some retirements, and man, was there a lot of retirements these past couple of weeks. Starting with the Steelers defensive lineman Stephon Tuitt retires after 8 NFL seasons. And then, of course, the legend himself, Ryan Fitzmagic, retired after 17 NFL seasons with, I want to say it was probably somewhere pushing 17 different teams.
I think, where did I read it? It was something like he's played for 1/3 of the amount of NFL teams.
It was just insane how many teams he played for. And the funniest part is each team he played for, it wasn't even like it was just a quick stop there. He actually usually ended up playing, whether he was supposed to or not. So that's kind of funny.
Even his rookie year, he played for
the Rams. And then another little fun addition is Aaron Rodgers is now the only remaining 2005 draft class quarterback.
Yep.
Fitzpatrick was the other one, but now he's gone, and Rodgers is the last one. And then center Alex Mack retires after 13 seasons, mostly spent with the Browns, Falcons, and 49ers. And then two Eagles, longtime Eagle Brandon Brooks, who played guard for them during the Super Bowl run and for quite a few years, I'm pretty sure, retired, and former Eagle, who was also there for their Super Bowl run in 2017, Malcolm Jenkins, who played safety for them, also retired.
Yeah.
So, man, the Eating W's retirement home is open.
It is.
That was quite a list.
You know, one cool little tidbit about Malcolm Jenkins that I just found out, he's the only player to defeat both Brady and Manning in the Super Bowl. Because he beat Manning with the Saints when Manning was with the Colts.
Back when he was with
and
the
then
Colts,
he beat the Brady and the Pats with the Eagles in
2017
Super Bowl.
That's impressive.
Only player to do it.
He's like the legend killer.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty cool. If only could have gotten Rodgers. So, moving on to a couple of extensions now. Aaron Donald got a 2-year, $60 million extension, and the Rams also handed out a 5-year, $110 million extension to Cooper Kupp. So the Rams making sure they lock in some of their superstars for the long term and just pushing that imaginary cap number higher and higher. But I mean, it's going to have to bite them eventually. In a couple years, they're going to be really looking at some cap problems.
They'll have some large cap hits on some players that are probably expendable.
Yeah, most definitely. And then finally, one last extension. The Las Vegas Raiders signed a 2-year, $32 million extension for slot receiver Hunter Renfrow. So good to see him get paid because he's always been pretty sneaky good in the NFL. So now that was the news built up from the prior 2 weeks, and now we shall jump into our main course. We are predicting which quarterback for these quarterback controversy teams will start the most games. So our predictions here isn't for who's going to be the week 1 starter. It's for who will start the most games throughout the entire course of
who will be the
season.
main starter for the season.
Yep. So we will start here with the Miami Dolphins. And Kellen, I'll let you go first on the AFC teams, and I can take the NFC teams first.
Okay. So for the Dolphins, I went with Tua. I mean, it's a make or break year for Tua. I think that Teddy will start some games because Tua's just kind of injury prone. But for the majority, it's Tua the whole way for the Dolphins.
I would definitely agree. I also have Tua. I think Teddy will definitely start some games. I don't know if they will all be because of injury, because I'm not on the Tua train. I'm still very, very shaky about going fins up. But I think they are in a really bad situation, actually. They spent a lot of money this offseason, and I don't know if it's really going to pay off for them because they're not QB ready, especially QB ready to have a wide receiver like Tyreek Hill running streaks down the field. So I think they're in a really shaky quarterback situation, and I think they both start some games, but I think Tua does end up starting the majority.
Although if you ask Tyreek, Tua is more accurate than Patrick Mahomes.
Yes,
in a recent interview.
Because that makes sense. We'll just pretend like that makes sense for now.
Whatever you gotta do to support your guy.
Exactly. So now jumping over to some NFC East teams, I'll take these first, and we'll start with the Giants. And I think that Daniel Jones will be the starter for the majority of their season. And he, of course, will be fighting against reps with Tyrod Taylor. And the Giants will not correctly fulfill the Tyrod prophecy. I think Jones will just play well enough to keep that starting role throughout the entire season, which I think will actually be pretty good. I think he's going to be a middle-pack quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a crazy good quarterback this year. But I think he's going to be much improved from what he has been the past couple of years. But little do the Giants know, if they just fulfilled the Tyrod prophecy and let Daboll start him for a couple of weeks and then throw Daniel Jones into the fire, he'd be playing much better. But he will play good enough to keep his starting job.
Yep, I agree. The Giants don't know how to do the Tyrod prophecy. They kind of mess it up and flub it. So I think Tyrod rarely plays, and it's Daniel Jones for the whole season.
Most definitely. So now moving on to another NFC East team with the Washington Commanders. This quarterback battle will of course be between new arrival Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke. And also I guess you could throw rookie quarterback Sam Howell into that mix, but with those two guys in the front, I don't see Howell getting a ton of reps. I think he's a much more future guy. But I personally have Taylor Heineke getting the majority of the reps. I have been a huge Wentz fan ever since he got hurt in that 2017 season after having a total MVP campaign. If he didn't get hurt, he probably would have won MVP
that year.
And then he had to watch his team go win the Super Bowl without him, which was of course so cool to watch his team win the Super Bowl. But he knows that he could have won that Super Bowl too, but he had to watch Nick Foles do it. So I felt so bad for him. I have always rooted for him since that moment. But my patience has just kind of worn thin on him. He's went to all these different places and hasn't been able to step up. Couldn't after his injury in Philadelphia. He couldn't in Indianapolis, and I don't think he'll be able to in Washington. So I think Wentz will be the week 1 starter, but I think Heineke will take over at some point in the season and start more games.
I agree with that. I think that Heineke does play more or start more. I think that Wentz will get hurt at some point, and then Heineke comes in. He starts playing better. That puts pressure on Wentz. Wentz plays a lot worse because we've seen how that goes for him. When his backups start doing well, he starts to crumble.
You just have to literally not have a backup quarterback. That's the key to success with Carson Wentz. So now we will jump to the AFC North with the Browns.
So for the Browns, this is a tough one because, I mean, Watson's probably going to get suspended for an X amount of games. Who knows how many. Baker probably turns the cold shoulder on the Browns now because of the way that all this is unfolded after thinking that he was their guy, and then they go and trade for Deshaun. It's probably going to be Jacoby Brissett. I mean, he's the surprise starter here. I think he ends up starting most games because, like I said, Baker sits out. Watson's suspended for who knows how long. I think it ends up being Jacoby's year in Cleveland.
Jacoby will finally get his chance. Yeah, like you said, Baker really got the short end of the stick with the way they treated him. So I think he's either going to refuse to play or want to get shipped out somewhere else. Deshaun Watson wants to finish in court even faster than he did in the massage parlor.
Damn.
So there's a big old probably year suspension for him, knowing how the NFL is. Spin the suspension wheel. Maybe it'll only be like 2 games.
Might be 2 games, could be 2 seasons.
Exactly. So that just leaves Brissett. But wait, I think the Cleveland Browns look to the West Coast and they bring in quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo to lead their team this year. I think the QB who will start the most games for the Browns is Jimmy Garoppolo.
That's very interesting.
They've seen how well he can work when he's in an offense where he is far from the centerpiece and has a solid defense to back him up. They know they're going to get the mistakes with him, but they're also going to get some good game management. And I'd like to say low turnovers, but he actually doesn't turn it over a bunch, but he probably should turn it over a lot more than he does. He kind of gets lucky with that. But I think that they're willing to take that swing with him instead of Jacoby Brissett, and I think that they set up some sort of trade package, or maybe if the Niners release him, whichever way they have to do it, I think they somehow end up getting Jimmy Garoppolo and run with him for the season.
It's very likely that Jimmy Garoppolo gets released because they can't find a trade partner. And if they release him, even though there is a dead cap money hit, they do actually get about $8 million in cap relief. So it is possible and beneficial to the 49ers to release him prior to training camp.
So yeah, with Watson suspended and Baker leaving them hung out to dry, I think they look to Jimmy G, especially if they can get him on a half-decent deal as a free agent instead of having to trade something for him.
That'd be pretty wild.
Because they just gave up all of their picks for Deshaun Watson. So it's going to be hard for them to trade for another quarterback.
That'd be pretty darn wild.
So now we're going to stick in the AFC North and jump to the Steelers.
So for the Steelers, I mean, it's got to be Trubisky all the way here. I mean, barring an injury, I don't think that Kenny Pickett plays at all. And, I mean, you can't forget about Mason Rudolph. He's still there, too.
I forgot he is in there.
Don't forget about Mason. So I think that just because of the rawness of Kenny Pickett, even if Trubisky gets hurt, I think they go with Mason Rudolph. But I think that Trubisky starts the most games.
I totally agree. I mean, Pickett's time will come. Don't get me wrong. I think he'll be the starter in the future for sure. Probably even next year, maybe 2 years after Trubisky's contract is officially done. But for now, you just paid Trubisky all that money. Why not see what he can do? Let him run. Let him actually have a chance in an offense that's much more crafted to him than Chicago and Nagy ever really gave him. And I think it's really going to be a rejuvenation for him. I'm not saying he's going to come out and have this insanely good season and be an MVP guy or anything like that, but I think that he will do much better than he ever did in Chicago, which, even though it was mostly their defensive side carrying them, he actually did pretty well record-wise in Chicago. So the fact that they weren't even really helping him out and he still did at least half-decent in Chicago, I think he'll do pretty good in that Steelers offense. And as for if he gets injured, I agree that it probably will be Mason Rudolph as backup in every game except for the 2 games against the Browns because, he's not going against Myles Garrett again.
No, God.
He's not going on the field with Myles Garrett out there again. Talk about the wheel suspension. Myles Garrett almost killed a guy on the field, and he only got, 2 games?
It was something like that.
Yeah,
4 games,
exactly.
6 games.
But
remember.
Overall, I think Trubisky gets the starting job there in Pittsburgh. So now jumping from north to south and going to the NFC South, we have the Atlanta Falcons. And I have my first and only rookie quarterback starting here. I think that Mariota will be the week 1 starter, but I think that he relies on that run. I think he takes a few hits and all of a sudden he's like, wow, I'm not 22 years old anymore. These hits hurt a lot more. I think he goes down with injury sometime towards mid-season. I think he is the starter for a while. And then they'll probably have a bad enough record at that point that they just throw Ritter into the fire and let him kind of learn by trial and error. And I think that's where he comes in. And I think Ritter becomes the starter for the majority of the season. And the Falcons still probably do pretty bad, but it's good to get that in-game experience.
I agree with that. I've been pretty high on Desmond Ritter, especially if you followed our mock drafts in the previous draft season here. And I think that he has a course similar to Russell Wilson. I think he actually wins the job in training camp. And they sparsely even use Mariota.
Okay. I could maybe see that. Just you pick up Mariota, you have a rookie here. You're right. Some people did call him the best QB prospect, even over guys like Malik Willis and Pickett, who we just talked about a little bit ago. I don't think he wins it week 1. I could maybe see it happening, but I think he definitely does end up playing the majority of the season at some point. I think so. One rookie's got to play.
He just seemed focused. I remember watching him when he got drafted, and they put the live camera shot on him. He wasn't celebrating like everyone else. He was sitting there. I think he had his phone down. And he was just focused.
He was already.
He was just
preparing.
like, "Let's go," there was no celebration.
That's good to see.
I just thought that. I saw that, and I thought, "Damn, this dude. I don't know. He might be different."
That's cool. We'll
see.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, even in a bad QB class, you got to imagine you see at least one rookie starter somewhere. So I think Ritter will be that guy. So now, keeping it in the NFC South, we're going to jump over to Carolina and the Carolina Panthers. This battle will be, of course, between Sam Darnold and a couple of other guys, whoever you want to look at. P.J. Walker, pretty much anybody other than Sam Darnold in the league at this point, because, man, has he been struggling. But I'm actually going to put my prediction on Sam Darnold. I'm going to give him this one last chance. He's got 1 year left on his contract. They picked up his 5th-year extension as soon as they signed him. He actually did pretty decent to start the year last year, and then a few bad things happened, and he just let that build up until it finally exploded on him. But I think this is his last chance, and he knows it, and he's really going to lock in. They gave him some offensive line help, so now he's going to have a little time in the pocket to really read a defense. And just like Wentz, I've always really rooted for Darnold, and I've already kind of given up on Wentz. So I gotta stick with one of my guys. So I think Sam Darnold is the starter in Carolina. You gotta remember, he's only 25. Might have been a 2018 guy, but he came in at like 19, 20 years old. So he's still very young, relatively, in the NFL for a quarterback. He's still learning, and I think he gets his chance here.
Yeah, I think it's Darnold all the way, too. I mean, like you said, the 5th-year option was picked up. At the very least, they don't have to extend him. If it's another bad year, they just let his contract run out and they start over, or they roll with Corral. Although Corral has already been away from the team due to some sort of family emergency, so he hasn't even been there for any of the mini camps. So it's got to be Darnold all the way right now. Although I have a wild card here. And I think the wild card here is Baker Mayfield. Because if they are able to work out a deal where maybe Cleveland just bites the bullet and releases him, there was already a little bit of contact between Baker and Carolina, and they said they didn't want each other. But I feel like that was, I don't know,
a little bit like a little bit of high screen or something.
Yeah, a little
maybe?
high school drama there. Yeah. Neither one wanted each other, and they came out and said that. And it's like, that's weird. No one comes out and says they don't want each other.
Exactly. It's never like...
So I think they end up getting together and working out a deal.
Interesting.
If Baker hits the free agency market.
Baker in Carolina.
Yeah.
He trades in one type of dominant running back for another, going from Nick Chubb, who is more of that bruiser guy, to Christian McCaffrey, who's a receiving back. Interesting. I'd really like to see that.
That would be really interesting if that happened.
Maybe they will work out some sort of a trade so Cleveland can actually kind of recuperate some of that draft capital they gave up for Watson. So now we are going to keep it in the NFC with these last two, but move over to the NFC West and start off with the San Francisco 49ers. I kind of debated even adding this one to the list because I agreed with Callan that they're probably going to cut Jimmy G at some point or trade him or however it's going to happen. But the battle here is kind of between Jimmy G and Lance, but you got to imagine it's Trey Lance all the way. That's my prediction. They moved up 3rd overall to get him last year for a reason. They're not just going to sit on him for a super long time. He played a little bit last year and showed flashes. I personally didn't love the way he played, but he came in cold a few times, so you can't really overly judge off of that. But I think this is his year that he gets the start and he runs with it.
Yeah, I agree too. They seem to really be all in on Trey Lance. I think Jimmy G does get released by training camp because if you know a team's going to release a guy, why try to trade for him? And barring an injury, I think, Jimmy G doesn't play for the 49ers again, and it's Trey Lance's team from here on out.
So we'll have to see how that goes. Very different play styles, Jimmy G to Trey Lance. That's going to be a fun transition to watch. Luckily, they have a pretty damn good offense around him, so it shouldn't be too difficult of a transition. And then for our final team, we have the Seattle Seahawks. This quarterback battle is between Drew Lock and Geno Smith, and I personally have Drew Lock in this one. Seattle had always shown some interest in Drew Lock ever since he was drafted back in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
They made that big Russell Wilson trade, and they got rid of Wilson and got Drew Lock, as well as some other players, including a new target, or I shouldn't say a new target, but the same target in a different location in Noah Fant, who will now also be in Seattle with him. And I think that they give him his chance here.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, look, honestly, Drew Lock is the guy that they traded Russell Wilson for. I mean, you can say it was for the first round picks and all that, but when you're swapping a quarterback for a quarterback, you probably plan on using that guy. And I mean, plus, Geno Smith is still in Pittsburgh looking at his hands from that fumble 8-9 months ago, however long it's been.
He can still feel where T.J. Watt slapped him in the back of the hand that caused the fumble. He hasn't washed it because of anger
He's
and
just still laying
sadness
there,
of just waiting
laying
for
there,
it.
he's looking at him.
Exactly.
It's been months.
Months. No one can find him. They don't know he's at Heinz Field. They don't know where he is. But that was our predictions for some of the NFL teams' quarterback battles. Now, of course, we could have gone through every NFL team, kind of similar to like we did last year, but we just talked about it, and we were like, so many teams are obvious this year.
Right, I mean,
that we just kind of made this list and just did the select few who are actually have some sort of quarterback competition. So let us know in the comments if there's any that you thought shouldn't have been on this list that was, or if there's any that you thought should have been on this list that wasn't, where you think a quarterback could be starting somewhere new.
Rodgers and Jordan Love,
maybe. Kellen Mond and Kirk Cousins. No, I'm just kidding. Please just start.
I've heard Mannion's outplaying Kellen Mond.
Oh, God. Sean Mannion. That guy will just never go away. It's insane. He's ageless. No, but...
He's going to be the next Fitzpatrick.
But, yep, let us know in the comments. And until next time, don't forget...
to eat the W.